Good time zone to everyone, and welcome to the Rotary Action Group for Community Economic Development webinar. And the topic today is needs assessment. Our board of directors has planned a series of webinars designed to help you plan, implement, and access sustainable projects. We are glad you have joined us, and I am sure that you will find the information that our speakers, Wally Gardiner and Bonaventure Vanderhand, will share with you to be helpful and valuable. I'd like to thank our host, Alberto, and also Christina, who's organized our webinars along with Alberto and Andy. I think that together we can provide so much needed information to people looking for it. And with that, I'll turn it over to Christina, who will tell us how we will proceed.
Hello, everyone. So tonight or today, our program host will be Alberto Palombo from RC Brasilia International. Okay, Alberto, can go.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Margaret, and thanks, Christina, for the opportunity to host this second chapter of the webinar series of the RAGCED. I am a fan of this RAG because it is an important part of the community service that Rotary offers in every corner of the world. And it's very important to have this outreach to everybody in terms of bringing the best information and the best knowledge that we have among Rotarians and Rotary International staff and collaborators in the Rotary Foundation in order to do better projects in the community and economic development area of focus. So today is very important because we have our area of focus manager of Rotary International Community and Economic Development, which is going to be introduced later. But I don't know if Nouriel is here to introduce our first speaker, but is she here? No?
He's not just here. I'll just do it. Yeah.
Okay.
He's not. Okay.
Okay, so Christina will introduce Bonaventure and
Wally.
I'm sorry, Wally first. Okay, yeah, Wally, who is today in stereo today in our session. So I also remind everybody that we are recording this session, and that by remaining in the session, you agree to be recorded, and your image can be used further for the purposes of the dissemination efforts of RAGCED as part of the this webinar series. So thank you very much for coming here today. And Christina, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Alberto. So this is an opportunity for me, of course, to introduce Wally. Wally Gardiner, past president of the Rotary Club of High River, Alberta, Canada, holds degrees in technical education, Spanish, as well as several industry technical certifications and awards. And he's a past CEO of Gardiner Computer Consulting Incorporation and have worked extensively in technology-related fields, technical education, technical writer, and magazine author, curriculum development specialist, small business development, technical implementation strategist, conference speaker, and technology trainer. He is a former communications director for RAGCED, a post he held for many years, and currently the Cadre technical officer for community economic development liaison for the Rotary Foundation. He has been involved with a number of microfinance and economic development projects over the past years. As a Cadre member, he has worked primarily in South and Central America, as well as Mexico, reviewing and mentoring projects in a number of areas of focus, as well as the grants management evaluation team for the foundation. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wally Gardiner.
Yeah, after an intro like that, Christina, I'm not only in stereo, I have my head swelling all over the place. So good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. And I'm here to tell you everything you ever wanted to know about doing community assessment surveys, which is considerable. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if that works. And we'll see what happens. Boom. Maybe, you never know. Ta-da, there we go, technology working again. So the topic this morning is how to write a good survey and what you should be asking in it, the kind of questions you can ask in the survey, and how to get the information you need. So let's see if that works. Whoa, so why do surveys? The number one reason we do a survey because the Rotary Foundation makes us do it. You know, the question from that comes up is why do they make us do it? Okay, everybody looks at it and says, oh, I got to do a community assessment, you know, and that's like, oh, no. But the reason we're doing that is because we write better grants. In the past, I have to tell you, my club and our district did terrible grants for things that really people didn't need, or we destroyed an economy doing it. The sample example I love to use is somebody from Rotary goes on vacation, they walk into some village someplace and the kids don't have shoes. And they go, oh, we've got shoes? You know, we'll go home and we'll have a shoe drive and we'll fill up a sea can and we'll take pictures and put it on Facebook and we'll ship the sea can and we'll all fly down and we'll hand out these shoes to kids. It'll be a great deal, except that we just put every single shoe manufacturer in that country out of business for about the next 3 years because we're giving away free shoes and he had a part of the economy selling shoes. And for that part of the economy, it kept going and he could buy stuff at the grocery store because he was making shoes. So that's the reason for it. We want to write grants that truly reflect the community. In a needs assessment, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get opinions on community problems from people in the community, not some guy in Canada or the United States or some other country, but people that actually live there. We want to evaluate the level of demand for a product if we're doing marketing. So if you're trying to sell something, that's why you do a community service. We'll survey, will people buy my product? Or if we're doing an evaluation on behalf of the Rotary Foundation or your club or whatever, which is something you should do after a project, you want to find out what the impact of the social program or policy has been. So that's why we're doing surveys. So Rotary, in their wisdom, has come up with a very good file name that's like that long, called Community Assessment Tools _en.pdf in English, and it's also available in Spanish, está disponible en español también, and other languages as well. So if you find it's not in your language, you know, write them a letter and say, hey, I want this in Swahili or Tagalog or whatever. But this is a really good place to start. And it'll talk about the types of assessments, a community meeting you can have, you can do an asset inventory, you can do a survey, which is what I'm going to talk about. You can do interviews, focus groups, and community mapping. But all of those have questions involved. So we want to look at what should we be asking? Do we want to ask, do you like ice cream? No, that's not part of the information we want to get. We want to get an information essential to our project. So there's 4 kinds of things that go wrong in surveys, believe it or not. Coverage. How did we select who to talk to? If you walk into a community and you only talk to 2 people, is that a valid survey of the community? No. I saw one global grant, believe it or not, where the guys at the Rotary Club went and talked to 1 person in the community. I went, what is this? They did it a long time ago and they got away with it, but it's not good coverage of the community. You don't really know what the community thinks. You know what one guy thinks. So it's important to find the leaders of the community and talk to them as well. If I go and do an evaluation on behalf of Cadre, for example, and if I go to a school, I talk to the teachers, I talk to the principal, and the other people I talk to are the moms standing in line waiting to pick up their kids. And who do I find out most from? The moms. You know, that'll give you an idea of what's going on right away. If somebody's got a complaint about something, you'll hear about it. Sampling. Did we talk to enough people? In this case, what we're looking at is if there's 1,000 people in the village, what's a valid number of people we should be talking to? Do I talk to 5 people? No, not big enough. Do I talk to all 1,000? It's going to take forever. What we want to do is get a representative sample of the number of people in the village, and usually about 20% would be lots. But talk to those number of people so you've got a really good idea that you've talked to a sample of the village and you have an idea what's going on. Then look at the answers you're getting. In that term, we're talking, the technical term is measurement. And you have to look at it and say, are your answers useful? If you say, do you like ice cream? And the guy says, I don't know. Is that a useful answer? No. A better answer would be, no, I don't eat ice cream because I'm a diabetic and it has too much sugar in it. Or I like chocolate chip, double chocolate, and they never have it at the store and I just don't buy it anymore because they just stopped making it and my life is ruined. Or a non-response. Okay, so if you send out a survey and you don't get any answers back, what happened? Did you put your contact name on it? This has happened. Reply to box number, and there's no box number. So proofread your survey carefully to make sure that you have some way of people getting in touch with you. Put your email address on it, put a contact name, call me, phone me, those kinds of things. It works not too bad. So the purpose of doing any kind of needs assessment is look for what problem in the community are we trying to solve. In some cases, it'll be a literacy project that people are looking to start because nobody there reads. There's abject poverty everywhere, which is the problem that we're busy working against and alleviating, and we're getting better at it, and we're doing much improvement in the world. Or is it a water problem, or is there a violence problem? Sit down with people in the community, talk to them and say, okay, what are the problems in the community? And find out what that is. That's what we're trying to find out in our survey. What needs doing? So what kind of information are we going to need to solve this problem? So if you're asking questions like that, trying to avoid being vague. Don't say, so what do you think about? Ask direct pointed questions. Ask unbiased questions. For example, I was just talking to Alberto and he says he came from Knoxville in Tennessee, went to school there. And you say, so Alberta, if the Wolves don't win this year, you've already shown a bias that you're pro go Wolves, okay? And you have an interest in football. So try and get the bias out of your question. So if you're asking about ice cream, avoid mentioning double chocolate because it biases your question. Now, remember that the results we need, you ask with critical questions. So don't be vague. In addition to that, before you do your survey, you may need a focus group. And that's also available, as a tool in the Rotary toolbox. And do a focus group of a smaller group of people within your community to determine what kind of survey you should ask in the bigger group. So consider that as a strategy or a methodology as well that you could use to do it, and record both of them in your documentation that you're sending in for your global grant, because then you've got a focus group for the small group, and then you've got a survey for the bigger group, and you've done your job. You know exactly what the problems are in the community, you know what the community says would be a solution to those problems, and you're ready to go. So that gives you the kind of information you're hoping to get from the questions you asked. So there's 4 types of questions in English, and we want to talk about this one too. The first thing to do is make sure your survey is written in the local language. I've actually seen surveys where they send people out that speak Spanish, for example, and Spanish is their second language. Their first language may be Zapotec or one of the indigenous languages in Mexico. There's 65 of them. So you have somebody whose Spanish is not super strong, reading a survey in English and asking questions about it. What could possibly go wrong? No. Nothing. Yeah, sure. Everything. And you also send them out with a pencil that isn't sharp. And by the time you get your survey back, there's misunderstandings all over the place. So write your survey in the language of the community so there's no mistranslations. When we think about it, English is a terrible language for anybody to learn. Ask anybody learning English, they'll tell you about it. And we have all kinds of things in the English language that can be misinterpreted. When you think of arms, like these are arms, got them right here, okay? But we also have arms like, so if you put the word arms into an English survey and translate it into Spanish and give it to somebody whose second language is Spanish and translates it further into Zapotec, for example, How badly is it going to get mangled? Very. So write your language or use your language and your survey in the language of the community, and get people from the community doing the survey, and test them ahead of time to make sure that they understand clearly what kind of questions we're asking and what the meaning of the question is. Translation can be terrible, and don't use Google to do it. Get somebody that really knows both languages and is fluent in both and can do it. Use language levels that are appropriate. We were doing one survey on behalf of the foundation in Honduras. And in the middle of this, we had it translated into Spanish. This was good because it started in English. And they used the word pertinent. They said, how is the training that you received pertinent to your job? Every single person we asked said, what does pertinent mean? Pertinente. What does that mean? We said, oh, how has this helped you in your job? So a $10 word like pertinent should be substituted for a nickel word like how has it helped you in your job, that people will understand. Okay. And don't use a lot of acronyms and things. Like everybody knows who the CIA is and the NSA and NASA and those kinds of people. But and in Spanish, there's a word for it, la CIA. It comes up quite a lot, I guess. But anyhow, anybody sort of coming up to that survey will look at all these abbreviations and go, what is that? What are they talking about? And unfortunately, things like some abbreviations have dual meanings. Like, for example, the word ICOM. ICOM could be a radio oscillator modulate, and their abbreviation means different things to different people. The classic one is the Chevy Nova. Everybody knows Chevrolet cars. Well, Nova sounds really good in English, but in Spanish, it means it doesn't go. Nova. So why would you sell a car that doesn't go? So be careful with your abbreviations and your naming of things. Language is very important. So there's 4 kinds of questions, surprisingly enough. We don't ask rhetorical questions because they don't give you answers. We want to ask direct questions. So an open-ended question is the most difficult to score. It's what should be done to improve the community. That doesn't have a yes or no answer. It's a thoughtful answer. It's one that you're asking for an opinion and reasoning from somebody, and it takes longer to do. Open-ended questions are probably your best ones. But when it comes to data collection and analysis, they're also the hardest ones. The foundation for a while was looking at computerizing a lot of stuff, and we worked on a couple of survey tools. And what we discovered was they wanted to put stuff together that you could just bang through a computer. The computer would spit out the results and plot your charts and graphs and all the rest of it. You can't do that with an open-ended question. That's one of the problems with it. So an open-ended, what should be done to improve the community? You're asking for an opinion of somebody, you're asking for thought, you're asking for insight, and you're going to get a lot of good information, but it's hard to analyze. A close-ended question with ordered choices, that's the other kind. We need more cars downtown. Strongly agree, sort of agree, don't agree, I'm against the proposal. You're giving persons a question that it's closed, it's in a nice little box, and here's your choices. That's sort of the standard one you'll see in a survey. A close-ended one with unordered choices. What best describes your housing? It could be a mobile home, could be apartment. What you're doing in that case is you're looking for variations and things. And a partially closed one has that fantastic little last thing added on at the bottom that says other. So at that point, you've got, do we want tortilla stands, fruit stands, or other stands? So you might find out that people are selling blueberries or haskaps or melons or something like that, or cattle, which is information that's useful for a survey, but again, hard to score. So 4 kinds of questions, all 4, no, that's all there are. When we look at this, we want to keep in our back of our mind the theory of change. Theory of change tells us we have inputs, stuff going into the project, we have outputs, stuff that comes out of the project, and we have outcomes, which is the social impact. And what we look for in Rotary is we want to find out what not only the output is from a technical viewpoint, but we want to know what the social impact is. What's the outcome of doing that? The example I like there is doing a well. The inputs for people drilling machines, plumbers, water installer people, trench diggers, that kind of thing. The outputs are water going into a household, but what are the outcomes? the outcome of that is that people have more time to work on their studies because they're not hauling water back and forth from a well that's 4 miles down the road. There's clean water, so kids don't get sick. Women don't have to go down to the river and wash their clothes in contaminated water. So those are social impact type things that you want to look at in your design of your project and also in your community assessment. Put it all in the same place. So designing your survey, this is an important thing too. Make it readable. I was doing a survey, and myself and a lady from Toronto, we spent about 4 hours on the phone trying to read these surveys that were coming back, that were written in pencil, that weren't sharp, in a language that was sort of Spanish. And I was doing the translation. It was really tough. Two of us would look at it and say, what does that really say? So don't use weird fonts. Any graphics designer will tell you that Comic Sans, and there's the example, is not a font. Don't put your survey together in stuff that's like 6 point, because old guys like me, with their glasses on, can't read them. Make it readable. Use a font like Times Roman. You can also use your fonts to impose authority. If you ever get a lawyer letter, your letter from your lawyer sent to you is probably in Times New Roman or Courier or something like that, because it looks like we mean business. Okay? So think of that when you put it together. Have a catchy title. Don't just put down survey to find out what people like. Put something in like, we want to find out if you like double chocolate ice cream, but draw the interest of persons doing the survey. Nothing is more boring to sit there with somebody with a clipboard saying, well, do you like this? And do you like that? Try and get them involved with it. If you sending it out as a document, put a nice design on the front, like spend some time in making the front cover look like something so that people will pick it up. They don't just pick it up and say, oh, survey, oh, another one of those. Okay. Try and catch their interest in doing it. The back cover, always put a thank you. One of the stereotypes of Canadians is that we're polite. We always say thank you, no matter what we're doing. You bump into somebody in the supermarket or the subway, is always, oh, sorry. We're famous for it. But on the back cover, always say thank you. You've taken somebody's time and some of their income possibly to ask them, things about their community, and it takes time and money to do that. When you're doing your questions, make the beginning questions easy to answer and not embarrassing. It's the put the high intensity ones in the middle. The stuff that is really the hardcore, hard-hitting, controversial stuff, stick that in the middle. Because if you put that at the beginning of the survey, they'll look at it and say, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Okay. But if you sandwiched it into the middle, the guy's already into the survey, and probably you'll get an answer, and then there's the sort of cooling off thing. So think of it like, you go up like a roller coaster, you come down, and you're done your job. Then use transitions. Transitions are a good thing, and people that are good surveyors or good focus group leaders use transitions. You want to let the person know what's coming. It's sort of like, and now we're going to talk about ice cream. Okay. Give them a chance before you answer the question to start leading them into the question. So whenever you do a survey, the first thing that's going to come up is what people will ask you about your survey. They first want to know, who are you? So keep that in mind, that you should have answers to these, have proper documentation, those kinds of things, why you're there, what you're doing, how it's working. Okay. And ethics. You have to think about ethics in this day and age always. Okay. If you tell somebody it's a confidential survey and it's not going to get back to their boss, it better not get back to their boss. I've actually seen companies that send out confidential surveys with stickers on them that identify you. So it's not. But look at the personal data you're collecting, and when you're done with the data, shred it so that it doesn't survive again. From survey to data, you need to get your stuff into something you can present and analyze. Using a computer is a better way to do it, because there's it can crunch the data faster for you. Take all your open-ended questions and separate those for analysis separately, because you can't really do them. And then use a program to make your stuff into what's called data visualization. So it clearly communicates your data. There's some technology you can use. SurveyMonkey's one of them, Microsoft Forms, Google Forms, and an interesting one called Kobo Toolbox. You can send your surveyors out in the field with Kobos, and they can put all the answers into it. When you take it back to the office, it connects to Wi-Fi and uploads it to the cloud, and you can analyze the data. That's a very slick way to do it, and Kobo makes it for free. So investigate that. It's not bad. So there's my talk. And if you have other questions, there's my email address. Please feel free to contact me, and we'll talk about it. And I can put you onto the bibliographies of some of the reference texts that are on how to do good community surveys. And I'd be pleased to assist you. So that's all from me. Pass it back to you, Christina.
Thank you, Wally. Alberto.
Oh, well, we are playing here like the balls. You see, Wally calls Christina, Christina calls me, and I call Jim for administering the question and answer session for Wally.
I think we're going to do the Q&A, Alberto, after Bona. Alberto. We lost
Getting
you.
music from somewhere.
Yeah, I know. Alberto. Alberto. Oh, we lost you. Yeah, Alberto, we're just going to do the Q&A after Bona. Let's do Bona.
Okay. Okay, so then instead of the Q&A,
we just to let you know, there are no questions on the chat for Wally. Maybe just a reminder to everybody on the call, if you do have questions, please put them into the chat, and we'll answer them after we hear from Bona.
okay, well, thank you, Jim, for that reminder. Now we will call on Roberto, our fellow Roberto Rivera, to introduce our second speaker, Bonaventure.
Hey, good morning and afternoon, everyone. I know we have people from all over the world. It's a pleasure to introduce Bonaventure Vendojan. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. I'm sorry, I speak Spanish and now I'm speaking English, so I don't know if I got your last name correctly. It happens to me all the time when people from other languages do Rivadeneira, which is hard. So anyways, Bonaventure is a livelihoods specialist in more than 15 years of experience overseeing inclusion and economic empowerment programs design, implementation, and evaluation. He started working at Rotary since February 2015 as Community Economic Area Focus Manager. As AOF management, he has worked in partnership with various stakeholders, including community-based organizations, governments, and corporates to support livelihood opportunities for smallholder farmers, youth, and women around the world. Bonaventure excels at strategic thinking and innovative market-based problem solving. His skills include program policy design and implementation, impact evaluation, including inclusive economic empowerment assessments, women and youth economic empowerment. He holds a master's in international development policy from Duke University, an MBA from Northwestern University, and an undergraduate degree from Purdue University. He speaks French and English. So you're welcome, Bonaventure, and hope you have a great speaking time right now.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you so much. Let me see if I can present my screen here. Can you guys look? Can you guys read it? Or?
Yeah, we can see it.
We can see it. Okay, we see the speaker notes as well.
Hold on a second. Is that no? Hold on. I'm trying to. Yeah.
Now it's good.
Okay.
Now it's good.
It's good. It's better. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. My name is Bonaventure Fondoran, and I will discuss with you, I will share my experience with you guys about community assessment. And I want to make a quick comment about people say community need assessment, community need assessment. Let's make sure it's more like community assessment, like we assess the community, we talk to the community. So, you know, following that remark, I want to share with you the policy statement of a Rotary Foundation when it's come to community economic development. It says Rotary support investment in people and communities to alleviate poverty, to create measurable and enduring economic improvement in poor and underserved community. And I want people to read that whenever they want to do a project. And the idea is we want to invest in people, and we want to create lasting economic improvement. How can we do it? Can we do it without talking to those people? Can we do it without having a conversation about what matters to them? That's where the community assessment questions, start. So when we talk about community assessment, the idea is to assess the community strength, the community weaknesses, the need and assets, and it's a way for us to know them. It's the foundation. It's like going to a hospital. The doctor asks you questions just to assess who you are, to assess your habit, to assess, the past history of a disease or any kind of problem you may have. And also is a way as a community assessment to understand the dynamic of a community, and it gives a chance for you to know some of the beneficiaries and know what they take as important for them. So for that reason, I want to give some tips for any community assessment, not only for community economic development, no. For any community assessment, the first behavior to have is to be open-minded, is to not have in mind something before we go to see them. And is to make sure that we choose carefully the participant to the discussion so they represent the whole community. And we make sure that people who are marginalized are part of that group that we want to talk to. And for better understand, to better understand the community, is good to consider yourself as an outsider. Even, suppose that I was born and raised in this community, but I came back 20 years after I left that community, and I have impression I knows everything. That will be wrong. Let's consider ourselves as an outsider. I don't know what's happening with them on a regular basis. I don't talk to them on a regular basis. So it's better for me to take a step back and say, listen, let me discover, let's talk to people here and see what they think is the most important. And it's also advised to not make any promise. Oh, I'm here to give you a project for water and sanitation. That's wrong. If you say that, you give them the impression that, if they don't pitch for water and sanitation, they may not have a project, So before you make a decision, don't tell them what you are there for, and empower them, give them a chance to talk to you, give them the chance to be the lead on the community assessment. And who should we empower to be part of that discussion? Local leaders. For example, the mayor, it can be a religious leader, it can be the teachers, it can be the school principal, it can be somebody that we know in that community. It can be the youth in that community. It can be indigenous people who has not receiving help from the local government. It can be women in that community. It can be any professional, group that has skill or experience of dealing with any issue they may face in that community. So talking to everybody is critical. Be able to have a more representative aspect of the community when you are engaging them will be key. So how do we do community assessment? And my colleague Wally just explained that, you know, it's better to have a conversation, direct interaction with stakeholders, you know, where they can voice not only their need, their assets, but also how they want to achieve it. The how is important because we may get the need, we may get the asset, we may get all of what they want to tell us, but if we don't get how they want that to be done, we may not empower them. So that is very important. And like I say, let's make sure that we understand that each group of beneficiary is unique and they may benefit from different solutions. So one solution fit all is not something that we advise. So don't make a promise before you make a decision. I already said that. Consider the skill provision over the need of equipment. It's easy to say, if you know people don't have job here, I give you this equipment and you will learn. So if we don't have a conversation with them, if we don't know if they have a skill, just giving them the equipment may not solve the problem. So let's make sure that we have that discussion with them. So as a working for the Rotary Foundation, we receive community assessment. We want to give you what kind of content we have as expectation. We want the community assessment document to tell us more about the stakeholder consulted, the need and asset in that community, the problem being considered, the resource available locally. We want the technology being used right now and the proposed solution. We also want other solutions being considered. And we want to hear, to have in your application how the community participate in this, in selecting the proposed solution. That is very critical. So I told you as a content, what we want to see in your application. So let's go project by project. And as a community economic development manager, when, for example, we want to, you put a community assessment for vocational training, what have we expected? We expect to have a quick idea about the market observation. Tell us about the market. Tell us about the local businesses. Tell us about the labor demand, the qualification, the constraint. Discuss a little bit about the youth focus group you have done, local NGOs. What are the future priorities, the funding trend, if the incoming contract? And the reason you talk to the local NGOs and donors is the fact that you don't want to start doing something that already is somebody is working on without talking to them. Having that conversation may reduce maybe some of your investment because somebody may already told you, no, you don't have to do that. We have done it and we will continue to be working on that project. And that is very critical. So we expect you to discuss with vocational training providers, people who can train in that community. Who are there? What do they think about training? What do they think about finding job in that community? Have you talked to the government representative in that community? How they perceive your project? What kind of idea they can add when it comes to sustainability? So for vocational training, here are some ideas that you can share in your application. If it's, for example, is an agricultural project, and you want to develop a project that help farmers, support women farmers in Honduras, we want you to discuss a little bit about the agricultural market. Tell us more about the input, the output, and discuss the household, how the household is organized. Who are the farmers? what kind of agricultural practice they have actually, what kind of change you want to make, what kind of social network exists in that community, and how that social network can help you to develop or your project. The government, do they have some extension services? And those extension services, what kind of service they provide to the farmers? Why your project is a plus, a value added compared to what the government is doing in this project. If you provide those kind of information to us in your application, we feel like, okay, we understand what you want to do, and your project is a real response to a problem people are having in that community. If it's a microfinance and entrepreneurship program you want to develop, a project you want to develop, we expect you to tell us a little bit about the market, a market for economic activities, local financial system. We want you to tell us about the entrepreneurship program in the past, if there are any, and the household characteristic. Because this is important, because if you want to support entrepreneurs, you should be able to tell yourself if the family at some point can become a lender to your entrepreneurs, and how they are organized. They can have a savings group, they can have anything that can contribute to that project. So your household, the discussion with the household will tell you all of that. You need also to talk to women group about the activities, which activity works and which activity does not work. Why a microloan or entrepreneurship training will be a plus to them. Social network. Okay, if we have a plan for them to do a mentorship and social networking after, we need to know what's happening right now in the community, and also discuss with the government. So, as you know, a global grant is, we are here to support your effort. We are here to make sure that we have more impactful project. So the first thing we encourage you to do is to involve all major stakeholders group that represent the community fairly. Use a formal methodology, and talking about methodology, you guys have heard, Wally, he discussed how we can do a survey, how we can make sure that we assess the community. And we suggest that to sponsor to assess more than infrastructure, assess the skill, assess the behavior, go beyond the infrastructure. But it will be useful if you can describe the current situation in the community, include the asset and need, explain the connection between the project and your community assessment. Because after all, if you have a community assessment that is not connected to your project, it doesn't make sense. We have information, but those information will not serve you, it will not serve, the Rotary Foundation. And at the end of the day, be neutral and be open-minded. Those are the tips I want to share with you today about community assessment. I know my colleague, Wally, has discussed, how to do focus group, how to do survey, what kind of question you ask, and I will be happy to answer any question you may have. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Bonaventure, for such an excellent presentation. I also wanted to reinforce what we're talking about today is one of the most, let's say, talked, was mostly discussed subjects when a club is trying to put together a global grant. Of course, we need to start with community assessments. As Wally said, more or less, in a jokingly manner, it's not because the foundation needs us to conduct the survey, it's because we need to know the community we serve as a club in order to serve better. of course, we have a publication. I'm using my privilege of host just to remind us that we have an excellent publication, the community assessment tools, available in my Rotary portal. And it's a 24-page document with many of the things that Wally and Bonaventure have discussed here today, of course, in a more didactic and how-to format. And we need to make sure that we use the documentation that Rotary puts together for us to do better projects, as well as to look up for our RAGCED. I couldn't lose the opportunity to make that commercial. And of course, the assistance of our area focus manager, Bonaventure, who is here sharing with us his information. So thank you very much, Bonaventure, for your presentation. Now I turn the floor to Jim for the questions and answer session, section of this session.
Thank you very much, Alberto. Some good kudos, very good kudos on the two presentations. But let me start with two questions for Wally. The first one from Bob, Calgary at Stampede Park. Wants to know, Wally, can we get a copy of your or get a PDF, a copy of your specific presentation? As he says, the content applies to all areas of focus. And,
Sure.
And a little comment, he asked about your Spanish version.
Yeah, we can certainly do it in Spanish if you'd like to as well. Well, since he's fellow Albertan and getting up this early in the morning, I'm sure we can do that. Drop me an email at wallygardnerrotary@gmail, and I'll zip you over a copy, or if you'd like a presentation to your club, we can do that as well. We're pleased to do all of those kinds of things.
Okay, thanks, Wally, on that first one. Maybe you can also, after you answer the second one, maybe you can throw your email address, or I can put it on the chat for you. The second question from Harold. Again, very good kudos on the presentation. But he did say survey was one of the tools to assess community needs. What about other tools which are less costly and time consuming? Will these be acceptable, like direct observations and focus group discussions?
Yeah, most certainly. The point I was trying to make there, Jim, is that at times you might want to do a focus group before you do your survey. Both are equally acceptable tools. Asset inventory is kind of an interesting one that is not as explored as it ought to be. You go through the community and find out what its strengths and talents and weaknesses are, so that you know what kind of things the community can already do that you can build on. And it's not used as much in any global grants I've seen. Possibly Bonaventure, you could comment on that. Oh, he froze for some reason. Okay, I'll just continue. Yeah, so it's the common one is people do a survey because it's easy to do. It's time consuming, yes, and the data analysis is also time consuming, which is why you want to look at the kinds of questions you're doing. But there are other approaches too that are equally acceptable. Asset inventory is one I'm still sort of exploring in my mind, but if done well, it does give you a really good insight into the community. And that's the important part of the whole exercise, is to understand what the community is doing. When you think of a global grant, it should not be an idea that some guy in Afghanistan or Alberta or the United States thought up. It should be something that was thought up in the community. And at the same time, you can tie that in with the measurement and evaluation of the project. You can ask the people designing the global grant, how are we going to know we did a good job? How will we know we were successful? So do you want to comment on that as well, Bonaventure?
Yes, I think the asset inventory, it doesn't have to be, it's a tool that you can use at the same time where you are doing your community assessment. Like, okay, if I say you are going to a farming community and you are having that is focus group, you have, key informant interviews, all of that. At the same time, you can walk around and see if they have rivers, for example, the nature of the soil, all of that. So that's the asset they have. So you look at all of that to see how and what they are saying they are talking about makes sense in the context of the context. For example, if you walk around and you see, okay, the soil is very dry, they have not received, rainwater for like 3 or 6 months, and they are asking you, okay, we need irrigation for our farming, that's check your box. So then you know that the asset, which is, the land here has issue and they need to add more elements. So it can be a combination of tools, asset inventory, focus group, TII. At the same time, you can also do community mapping, where you run from the one side of a community east to west, just to look at the different people going forward. Like you see, okay, here is a group of marginalized people, here is a group of indigenous, and all of that contribute to your community assessment. All of that, those are some tools that you can use going to the community assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, basically anything that makes you understand the community and its problems better.
Excellent answers, both Bonaventure and Wally. Another question from Harold. Bonaventure, this is to you. After the community needs assessment has been done, how does one prioritize the needs to be addressed and come up with a responsive and impactful project?
It's a long way, after you finish the discussion and you put together you have a discussion and they put together the priorities and you say, okay, we advise Rotarian to ask, how do you want to participate in this discussion moving forward? So they tell you, okay, our mayor will be part of this and this will be doing that. And you can even put that on your document and send that to your cadre, local cadre, and say, listen, we want to do this project and here's some ideas. What do you think? Do you think it's an eligible project? You can even move from cadre and send to a regional grant officer and say, listen, here's some ideas. We went to the community, they discussed it, and then the cadre member of a regional grant officer give you some feedback. They will tell you, listen, we need to know more about this aspect and that aspect. And that make you go back, if you have the possibility or is required, go back to the community and collect more information, and you start writing your application. That's basically how you can proceed. I know it can be back and forth, but it's better if you collect a lot of information at front and be able to share those information with people who can advise you. And then you don't have to be at the end and they say, oh, your project is not eligible.
Yeah,
Okay,
Cadre members are good.
Bonaventure.
Yeah, put a plug in for Cadre members too. Having somebody else read over your global grant application can be a good idea as well. Particularly, they can tell you what will fly with the foundation, what is acceptable, what's not. And as Bonaventure said, what are the things we need to improve on here? There's been several projects that I've worked on and other Cadre members obviously as well that were good projects. They had good bones about them. They were well thought out, but they're missing key elements. Like there was no community assessment done, for example, to show that was there, or the grant application itself wasn't explaining it very well. So having somebody that can write a good application and explain things clearly is a benefit in a global grant application as well. Over to you, Jim.
Okay, thank you, Wally. It's now 10 a.m. I know at the start, Alberto mentioned, I think, or Alberto Christina mentioned that this was only going to go to 1 hour, but Christina also just sent a message to everyone saying, please stay for the breakout session, which is going to happen very shortly. So maybe either Christina or Alberto, maybe you can explain to the attendees what the breakout session is about, maybe how long it's going to last, and let's prompt everybody to stay on.
Go ahead, Alberto. You can do it.
Okay. Well, go Bulls. Anyways, thanks, Christina.
Alberto, if you allowed me, Alberto.
She comes with the idea of breakout sessions and say, Alberto, now you do it.
Alberto, Kishan Goenka here. I have a very practical question, if you allow me to ask.
Please, go ahead.
This is a very challenging question asked by one of the club to me in my last global grant project. They have already done in the past the heart operation, global grant for children for heart operation. And it was passed, approved, and they have already finished the project of 36 children. And now they have applied for the new grant. And they have been asked to name the participant, name the children this time. How is it possible? Children are coming from Nigeria, Uganda, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, all over the place. It's a very practical question. Can both of them, very expert, answer this? Thank you, Alberto.
Yeah, I would take that up with your regional grants officer to clarify what they're asking. I can't imagine that they need to know the names of children. I can see where they need to know the numbers, but I would clarify that with your regional grants officer and see exactly what kind of information they're looking for. That sounds strange to me. Over to you, Bonaventure. What do you think?
I think that question is specific to a grant, to a project. And I don't want to make a comment on it, but it's be useful because I have not read the document. I don't know what is in the application. I don't want to make a comment that does not make sense. And I will suggest to the Rotarian to talk to the grant officer and say, listen, what's going on here? Why you are asking that question? And they should be able to discuss with you.
Yeah, and find the reason they need the information. That would be the key, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions, Jim?
Yes, there's one last one. So I don't know whether you want to do this in the breakout session or answer now.
Go ahead, and then we go for the breakouts for 8 minutes.
I have a question.
Okay, Margaret.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't aware that we were doing a breakout session as part of the webinar. So is the webinar concluding, and then those who want to remain can stay for the breakout session?
I think that's a fair way to act. Yeah. I think if there are no any more questions, we can leave everybody free to go. But I have already set up the breakout sessions for those remaining. We can stay for 8 minutes, and there is no requirement to stay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just for
Alberto,
networking, meeting people.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I guess we have another question. Someone is raising.
Well, here's the question. It's the same person that raised their hands, and his question is, and I guess we can both go to Wally and Bonaventure for this. Are there instances when doing your community assessment that the project of one Rotary Club is different from the actual, like, as he says, quite different in the actual scenario or situation?
Yeah, well, there shouldn't be, should there?
There should not be, no.
Yeah, if you've done a community assessment, and I mean, it's happened in the past. That's why I say we're writing better grants and we're better at what we do. Our district, for example, organized a CCAN full of books. We did a book drive for literacy. Everybody felt good about it. Awesome, and we shipped a whole bunch of old books in English that nobody wanted off to French-speaking West Africa. Way different than what the community wanted. That's probably the best example I can give you. But what should be happening is both the Rotary clubs involved in your global grant should have talked to the community and have a really good idea what the community wants. Like I'm fond of stressing, it's not what some guy in Canada is thinking. It's what does the person in that community in Guatemala or Honduras or Africa someplace, needs in their community and can prove that that's what everybody agrees is the problem in the community. So this kind of a dichotomy shouldn't happen.
Okay.
Maybe
Anything else?
if the person that was asked the question, Fidel, if you're going to stand maybe on one of the breakout sessions, if you have a specific example what happened, that might be something for discussion.
Okay, well, as a matter of fact, what I'll do is I put Fidel in the same room as Wally so they can
duke it out or whatever. Hey. Yeah, you know, like,
okay, so they can really get
yeah. Perfect. That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my fellows, I think that taking Margaret's recommendation, we would like to invite you to stay to chat a little bit about your experiences with community assessment for about 7 to 8 minutes. But you know, it's not a requirement of the session. We have finished the content part of this webinar, and we thank you for being here. I don't know if Margaret, if you want to do a 30-second final word for this, and then we go to the breakouts.
Nick will do the closing.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Nick. Oh, sorry, Nick.
No, Nick is doing the closing. Yes.
Okay, Nick. Sorry, Nick.
Goodbye. How's that?
Nick is a man of few words. Thank you.
On a more serious note, about a year ago, I was asked to come in and consult on a project that was community economic development, and foolishly asked the person who invited me in if they had talked to the community. It turns out 3 months later, we had a disease prevention project. We never had there never was a community economic development project. The entire project was misinterpreted by the Rotary Club who lived in the United States and didn't understand until they understood what the community had to say. I think, as we all know, global grants are partnerships between Rotary and the community. The community assessment is the beginning of that partnership. Not only do you understand what the community need is, but you begin to build the trust that you need with that community to come in and work in partnership with them to empower the community. And we all know that we eliminate poverty by empowering people. I think Bonaventure's used the word empower many, many times. You can't use it enough. In fact, the microfinance institution I work with locally will tell you that empowerment is priceless. Assessment is the beginning of empowerment. Assessment is the beginning of partnership, and assessment is the beginning of an impactful and successful project. I want to thank both of our speakers, Wally and Bonaventure. I want to thank Alberto for his normally wonderful job of keeping us all connected. I want to thank each of you who has joined us, and look forward to the next webinar on education, which is the next logical step in building a successful community economic development project. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, or evening, or tomorrow morning. And please don't hesitate to reach out, visit our website, www.ragced.org, if you need additional help or want additional information. Thank you, Christina.
Fantastic, Nick. I also wanted to recognize the presence of Marcelo Almeida, who is our incoming Rotaract district representative. He is here with us, and he is a fan of community development, and he is one of my favorite Rotaract fellows here in my district, in 4530 here in the heart of Brazil. So let's go to our breakout sessions. And you know, for those that want to come in after the 8 minutes, we'll be here if you want to just say a few words additionally. So thank you very much for your participation, and let's go and chat among the breakout rooms. Everyone, do you want to go to one of the rooms? Okay. Okay, here are the resilient. The
That was
resilient
quick.
assessment.
I didn't feel that one.
Well, guys, I hope you had a good breakout session. I tried to go in each one of the rooms, but I didn't have the time because every time I went into one, it was a very, very good discussion as I could appreciate. So, hey, I guess we accomplished our objective today. I believe that our next what is our next subject, Christina?
About education.
Education.
Yeah. For more information, please visit our Facebook page as well, RAGCED. We always post our events there for the next event. And I hope you will also help us share, because this is a very informative and good sessions for everyone.
Yeah. I need to say that here in Brazil, Marcelo will not let me say otherwise, is right now it is 11:20 a.m. and in a Wednesday, everybody's kind of working, the things. And so for us here in Brazil is a time that sometimes is difficult just to leave our other responsibilities to come to the RAGCED. But the fact is that we are advertising the recording, and I am putting them in my club YouTube and disseminating here in our district. So hopefully have them dubbed in Portuguese. I'm kind of encouraging our interpreters to do that. And Wally, if you can help me identify good Spanish interpreters, especially if they come out of the ROTEX and ROTARACTS, that would be great. Just let me know. We have an ongoing meeting that is even providing training on interpretation, remote simultaneous interpretation, and they are learning a lot, and they are providing a good service to these kind of meetings. But, most of them are here in Brazil and they're working today, so.
Yeah, I know, I understand. We'll look into the timings.
All right.
Okay.
So for me, that was the messages I wanted to share.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we're okay. Yeah, we're also gonna post the video in RAGCED FB page so we can share it also. Yeah.
Well, it's great to see all of you guys.
Yeah, it's nice to see
Bye,
you. I hope to see you
Thank
again
you
next
so much.
time.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye, Steve. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, the boss.
Great session. Thank you to all.
Thank
Bye.
you, Kuduro.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Marcelo. Bye, Rihanna.